something I wanted to show some of you guys out there, because you can talk back and forth about torches. And I learned about propane years ago when I bought a Homer kit, and it was a Craftsman kit, I think, that was a Harris torch. And it was called I don't know, something home, I don't know, but whatever it was just two little tanks, acetylene and oxygen. And at the time, all I had was a four-door Ford Fairmont. Yeah, I took the back seat out and put tools in there and stuff in the trunk. And one of the things I bought after a year or two was a torch. Actually, it was within the first year I bought a torch set, and it was propane. And propane has a different cutting tip. You can try and use the regular heating tips with propane. Don't recommend it. The only thing I could do, because I couldn't find any other tips, and then I remembered after I found all of my tips for the little Homer torch, was that they were inset. If you take a look here, it's inset. Oh, say, I can't even see from here. About 1/8 of an inch. It's shorter, as you can see. About 1/8 of an inch shorter. But what's on there? See the grooves and the one center hole for your torch tip. If I remember right, I bought a number 1. Let me see here. Yes. Number 1 cutting tip. For what's the different sizes for? The larger you get, the bigger hole you're going to have. The more heat gets there faster, but you're going to have a lot bigger hole. This one's a little more precision. You see the center hole in there. Now you see all the little slots in there. And the idea is to have more flame around the area you want the torch to work. The guys are telling me in the deconstruction yards that my brother-in-law worked at, when they were doing one of the steel plants, they said everything was propane. In some cases, some places are actually able to pipe in and use natural gas. But the idea still is the same. Fumble fingers here. And you can take it apart because you have to clean those channels. They do get dirty if you're not cutting cleaner material. But look at how many little flame fronts there are. And the idea of staying back in there is to give the space, because it blows the flame out. When you have the acetylene heating tip, it's just, there it is. There's just a bare little chamfer at the end of the hole. When your oxygen acetylene mixes, comes out and makes your flame. But it needs that shoulder, and I'm not exactly sure why, but on my Homer torch, they're little bitty short tips that work on the exact same handle as the cutting tip. They just block off the cutting tip port. And the end of each tip has like a 60-degree angle to it. Probably a total of 60 degrees. And it's inset about 1/8 of an inch. Now, to get it to work on, I bought a Chinese kit, torch kit, and I took each one and drilled into the holes a little bit, figuring it doesn't work well now because I was trying to weld with it. Propane does not weld well on steel. It doesn't. There's no way around it. But I did make it work. Now, brazing, stuff's great. Works fantastic for brazing. Yeah, because you're just looking for a particular kind of heat and capillary action and all of that. So, but I figured I'd throw that out there for you guys that have thought about it. And propane is easier to get a hold of, easier to handle. I mean, if you turn the tank upside down, you got a problem. But the idea is to have the tank upright, and unlike acetylene, there's nothing internally you have to worry about. You lay it on its side, or, don't let it fall over, but it is guarded. And if it's laying on its side, you can use it if it's half a tank or less, because gas comes out. And if liquid comes out, you're going to screw up your regulator. So they need to stand upright. But the tank itself can be upside down, sideways. It doesn't care. It's not like acetylene is critical. Acetylene is unstable enough that they put acetone in there as a stabilizer. And it's in a matrix of some sort. Never seen the inside one, but when I was in college, they described it. Also, on a lot of the older acetylene tanks, you'll see 2 plugs. Sometimes they're inset in the head, and they're lead plugs, soft lead. So if it reaches a certain temperature, it melts and burns the tank off so that it doesn't heat and explode, and literally explode, especially being acetylene, and there's usually air and oxygen nearby. Oh, baby. So propane has a similar pressure, so they operate with the same regulator. You don't have to change the regulator, just enough to put the fitting on there to connect it to propane and run similar pressures. You're going to adjust that a little bit here and there. But for those of you who want to convert, this is yeah, I showed you that one. Because of the tail, this is a Victor torch style. The Harris is a flatback. In fact, if you have trouble with a Harris and you have a very clean file, you can gently run it up and down the file and clean the back of the torch tip up. Now, these things, you can't clean them like your normal torch tip. Yeah, that's why it disassembles. You run a pick down each one of the channels there and make sure the front end of it's nice and clean. Take all the burrs off and you'll have a nice working torch tip again. They rarely need cleaning, and sometimes all you need to do is pull out like a stainless steel brush and clean them out. And they work very well. I've been happy with it over the years. And you say, yeah, we don't even bother with that crap anymore. I use a plasma. I say, yeah, I use a plasma too, but there's sometimes you have to heat. When you're out in the field, that works very well. So then the other one is, yeah, Curtis, Cutting Edge Engineering. And I can't remember his name down there, but at IC Weld down in Texas, you got to watch that guy cut. He uses plasma, but he'll fire up a torch and acetylene, of course, and he'll cut you a hole, just like you ran a plasma. That's the funny thing. When you're running air through there to blast and actually literally burn the molten metal with it, it's hot enough, and then you hit it with oxygen, poof, then you go around there cutting your hole. Well, the beauty of it is that if you're moving at a good speed, as these experts can, you'll have very little heat, but it's still 2 to 3, 4 times the heat that you're going to have with a plasma arc. Why? Because it's not just air. It's oxygen, and it's actually oxidizing the metal. It's not like plasma that's just blowing a hole straight through. But there again, it's what you're used to. And the nice thing about, well, plasma needs electricity. Oxyacetylene just needs tanks, hose, and regulators and the tip, which is very similar to your plasma arc, except, you're not running any gas. You're just running compressed air through there. So each has their own purpose and place. For larger stuff, the oxypropane is much better. Like I was saying about the family member that was working in the steel mills, torching things up, and they used gas and propane gas and natural gas. Oh, sorry. Late, tired, had a good day, so I'm tired. And he says they use that for the larger metal and just burns right through. He says it works far better and it's cheaper. So when you're down in the home section and you say, oh, I'm only using acetylene, good. Well, that's great. But there's also a turbo torch for propane, similar to the old Gauss torch that they used to call the plumber's torch, which is acetylene air, that they used to use for soldering quite a bit because it was safe, quiet, and easy. Portables, bring around the small tank. But at the same time, propane's easier, cheaper. So they each have, I've got the turbo torch. I use that for some heating instead of carrying around the oxypropane, or originally it was oxyacetylene. Yeah, it had a little bitty gray tank that you don't refill. You had to keep buying them. That wasn't fun. So I switched it over to propane, much better. For it was at the time, because you just take a can off, screw another one on. Now on my set in the shop, right now I have a 40-pound tank that was hooked up to it. Before I had a 10-pound that I bought specifically for the torch set. I wanted one narrower and slightly taller as a 5-pound or even a 10-pound. They're not available. The 5-pound's a little squat fat thing that would have been even worse. And it's plenty, even at 5 pounds. So I may find a way to go back to the screw-on tanks. That would be cool. Just change the tank, get another one, refill it. I've got 4 refillables, so I'd have to buy 2 more. But still, the idea is there, just throwing it across you folks. And so why in the world go through ideas? It's just ideas for different people doing different things at different times. You may be a shop guy, and when you're out on the road, you have your oxyacetylene. Well, maybe some of you actually feel better with oxypropane, and it's legal and legit to carry it. You just have to fill out your hazardous materials list. Be sure it's on there. because they don't like it when they can't find it. And they don't like it when they find it and can't see it on the list. Time to go. Good night, folks.